right, so this is, we make, the pen was nice enough to draw me kind of a little bit of a keyboard picture over here. And to go really basic, you know, you're going to go through A through G. Okay, there's no A notes. I mean, there's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but we're going to start from C and go to C, and that's an octave. Okay, everybody. Okay, so and then we're also going to. What I do is, and what a lot of players do, that when you get to a certain point, you create numbers for the notes in the scale. Okay, and what that does is when you're playing, all scales become different. Rather than think what's the notes of the D scale, you go D, E, F sharp, G, A. You know, rather than think through all these sharps and flats, you just think, okay, here's the notes of the scale: D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so that's how we come about that. All right, so first thing we're going to talk about to get into, that was kind of an overview. Now we're going to get into like the actual chord structure and what creates a chord. Well, a note is a note, and a chord is, generally speaking, 3 notes or more. There are, in metal, people use what's called power chords. It's a 1 or a 5. We're not going to be into that because I don't think anybody's played metal. I don't think so.
Classical uses 2 note chords. Classical uses.
Yeah, or modal systems, you'll use 2-note things and like that. So, but basically, this is for, like, you know, the types of music that we normally hear. Okay, and I'm going to show you some patterns in the chords too that will help you hear different things that are standard in music. Okay, so major chord. If you notice here, we're going to start, the C scale doesn't have any sharps or flats. So it's going to be C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to the 1. Okay, a major chord, okay, is going to be made up of the 1, the 3, and the 5 notes of the chord. So, and it's always going to be that way. If you're playing in the key of G, the 1, 3, and 5 are going to be G, B, and D. If you want to take your instrument, I can show it to you right now. Play a C chord and check your notes. You're playing, what notes are you playing? You're playing the C, the E, and the G.
You're repeating the C?
Yeah.
Right, you're playing the C twice. Okay, so if we were to move it up to the key of D, and we played it up here, and you check your notes, you'll be playing the first, the third, which is an F sharp, and an A note. Okay, so it's always the 1, 3, and 5. And a good way to kind of, that I remember, is the Beach Boys song, Bob Moran. Because even when people sing, a lot of times they're singing a chord. So you'll hear that ba 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 baram, ba 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 baram, ba 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 baram. That's the sound of the 1, 3, 5. So if you play it, you can play it on your instrument if you want, but find a C, an E, and a G, and it'll be. Then you start on the C note and you go ba 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 baram, ba ba ba. 1, 3, and 5. Okay, and that's always true in all chords. So if you're playing in the key of G, it's always going to be the first note, the third note, and the 5th note of that scale. So in the key of G, here's your G. That's the second note. The third note is the B, and the 5th note is the D. So if you play a G chord on your uke, not a G7, but just a regular G, and you check the notes, it's going to be a G, a B, and a D, and it's going to have the same sound. So if you want to start singing chords or hearing what they sound like, it's always going to be ba 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 ba. That's called an arpeggiation of the chord. It's kind of a fancy Italian word. It means play one note at a time with the chord. And they're all going to sound the same. This is the key of C, ba 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 ba, G, ba 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 ba, E flat. You know, it doesn't matter. It's always going to sound the same because the relationship is the same. Everybody with me on that? Okay, so that's what makes up a major scale. What happens is you're going to play the 1, 3, and the 5, but we're going to take the third note and flat it. and that's going to be all the time. So if you figure out your scales, which I don't want to go through every scale right now because they're all the same, relatively speaking, you'll notice, okay, you take your ukulele. What's a good one to make into a minor? A G? Yeah, that's easy to see. Okay, so you get your G. Now what's going to happen is you notice that when you make your G minor chord, you're going to notice that you took the third note, and which is a B, and you moved it down to B flat.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Now, how I remember a minor chord is pretty much, it has kind of a sad feeling to it. A lot of songs that are sad, not necessarily. There's a lot of upbeat songs that are in minor keys. You know, it just depends on the group and everything like that. But it has kind of a sadder tone to it. Happy, sad. And all you're doing is changing that one note. In the key of C, the 1, 3, and 5 is C, E, and G. So if you want to make a C minor, you're going to take that E note and move it down a half a step to E flat. And then after a while, you kind of can start picking up the different sounds of the different notes. And I'll tell you a little bit how that works in voicing, without getting too deep into it. The strongest note in your chord is going to be the name of the chord. That's, I mean, obviously, because that's when you listen to the chord. Which note has the strength?
Well, G's.
The G's, right? That's like the base of it. It's holding it down. It's like this is where I'm at right here. The second strongest note is going to be the fifth. Not quite as strong as the root, but the one that you like when you're looking for a chord and you just want to use sounds, and when it goes from major to minor, the third is what I call the wimpy note of the chord. It's like, that's the one that changes. So when you're listening to them, strong, pretty strong. I'm gonna run out of here because I'm scared. So you can kind of, if you tune your ears in a little bit, you can start hearing which note is which. So then if you can hear it, if this is the major and this is the third, you want to change to a minor, you go, oh, this is the one I moved down 1 fret for half a step. After a while you start hearing, oh, that's like, so maybe somebody starts a song and you go, and it's like this. You may not know what key it's in, but you'll say, oh, minor. Minor, it's a minor, they're playing in a minor. Okay? But to explain how a diminished chord works, okay, we took the third of the, let's go to key of G again. Our 1, 3, and 5 is G, B, and D, okay? So what they did was, whoever invented this stuff, they said, okay, well, if we move the B down to B flat, we get a minor. What happens if we take the fifth down a half a step? Also, okay? Well, then we have what's called a diminished chord. Okay, and usually use a diminished seventh, but I'm just going to keep this pretty basic. Normally, a diminished chord is played as a flat. I mean, it is a flat 7 too. So okay. It's a 1, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. But here's when you use it. Is usually a diminished chord for me is used as a passing tone, or when you're going from one. So if I want to play this bass line. Say a bass player is playing this. I can't play major chord. All right. So when the diminished chord comes in, it's so that the notes, without getting too technical here, so that the notes fit into that scale. The second chord you're going to play as a diminished chord, and it's used as a passing. Or if I'm going down, I might go. So if you want to get from a G to an A minor, okay, and you want to put like a note in between it, you would go. Okay? All right, enough said about the diminished chords.